we have the ability to investigating what life is and how cells and organisms and ecosystems work. You have to understand how this complexity works together. So that needs a combination of both the tools of molecular biology, which have been hugely advanced in the last 40 years, and also the tools of information science, which have also been greatly evolving over the same period. So I think the next 30, 50 years will be a very exciting one for biology.
Today is our great pleasure to have invited Paul Nurse, who is a cell biologist, a geneticist, who discovered the cell cycle regulatory proteins. I think most of you, or probably all of you who studied cell biology will know his contribution. So he received Nobel Prize in 2001 because of this groundbreaking discovery. Today, we are very pleased to have Paul Nurse to give our lecture. I'm sure you'll all enjoy his wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.
When I first thought a lot about science, but I think it's when I was quite young, 8, 9, 10 years of age, and I used to have a long walk to school. I watched the seasons change. I went through parks and looked at the changes in the plants and the birds you saw and the insects. And then coming home in the evening, I saw the stars and the planets and the moon. And I was by myself and sort of walking, and I just thought a lot about what was going on around me. So I got interested in natural history and astronomy. And I remember vividly seeing the second satellite that was sent up, which was called Sputnik 2. It had a dog in it called Laika. I had a dog too, and I was interested in that. And I got so excited, I ran down the road chasing it as it went past. And that was a real revelation to me about how the world was interesting, and it's something I was also interested in. Of every living thing is the division of cells from 1 to 2, because we're all made up of billions of cells, and some life forms are only made up of a single cell. But it's a very complicated process, and I chose yeast because it is relatively simple, and also an organism where you could do very careful experiments. It was a good experimental organism. So I also have genetically manipulate it to make it even simpler in the system that I'm interested in, because quite often a number of different proteins encoded by different genes are involved in the process. And the starting point for that, for me, was to actually show that the system was the same in humans and yeast cells. And I used an outrageous experiment for that, which had no right to work. I took a yeast cell that was defective in the key gene that controlled cell division in yeast. And I took a library of genes from human and essentially sprinkled them onto the yeast cells. And I asked the question, is there a human gene that will do the same job as a defective yeast gene? So I sprinkled them on a yeast mutant that was defective in that gene and looked to see if there was a human gene that could rescue it. Now, that experiment had no right to work, because yeast and humans diverged apart from each other probably 1.5 billion years ago. When I first observed under the microscope that it was working, I wasn't sure whether it was an artifact or there was something wrong with it. It took a couple of months' work to actually make sure it for certain was happening as I thought. But it did, and so that experiment worked. These genes were doing the same thing. I realized it connected yeast to humans and everything in between. And then I had a sense of wonder about it. And so I knew it would be a very important advance. actually, because quite often experiments and experimental approaches do not work. So there's quite a lot of failure. You have to have certainly persistence and resilience to keep working. I used to go home at night and sometimes say, I'm just going to imagine that it's worked, because I'll go in tomorrow and I will have shown that it didn't work. And I just wanted the pleasure of thinking maybe it's worked. It may sound very strange, but I would sit there and say, it's worked, and I'm enjoying it, knowing I might go in tomorrow and it would fail. It's just because I thought it might fail, and I just wanted to enjoy it that it might have succeeded. When something doesn't work the way that you expected it to, it seems like a failure, but it isn't really a failure. You've cleared away things that might have worked, but don't, which will make you focus more clearly on what might actually work. So once I got used to the idea that failure wasn't really failure, it just meant this wasn't the right approach, I felt better about it and could cope better with it. I think there is a problem winning a Nobel Prize, and that people take too much notice of you. They believe too much that you've got something useful to say. Everybody thinks that you have something sensible to say about everything, when of course we're exactly the same person we were before, when nobody was interested in anything that I said. The real problem comes is when you start believing that you have something to say about everything, which never happened to me, mainly because my family keeps me in my place all the time, I would suggest. And I'm a little unusual in the sense that I still keep an active research lab, and I'm still there half my working time. So I'm lucky I can still do that.
I think it's important to remember that other forms of life are also, to a greater or lesser extent, dependent on other living beings. The many parasites that live on or inside the cells or bodies of animals or plants or fungi, including ourselves, are clear examples of this. The extent of their dependencies are less than for a virus, of course. Different life forms have varied dependencies on other life forms. It means that life on Earth is fundamentally connected in two ways, both through being related to each other as a result of evolution, the tree of life, and secondly, through these deep relationships and interdependencies that I've just mentioned. But our knowledge is going further. I've explained how biology shows that all living organisms are related on this planet and closely interacting. And we are bound by a deep connectedness to all other life, to the bacteria, the fermenting yeast, pea plants. Together, all these species are life's great survivors, the latest descendants of a single, vast family lineage, stretched back through an unbroken chain of cell divisions into the far reaches of deep time. It means we are connected physically through this process of cell division, going back through, of course, to the sperm and the egg from our parents, back through their sperm and egg, and further back to the beginning of life. I find it extraordinary when I think about that. But as far as we know, we are the only life forms who can see this connectivity and reflect on what it means. And I argue that means that human beings have a special responsibility for life on this planet, made up as it is by our relatives, some close, some more distant. We need to care about it, we need to care for it, and to do that we need to understand it as well as we can.
I think a young scientist thinking of a research career, the most important thing for them is, do they have passion to wanting to know the answer? Because it doesn't pay particularly well for most people. It's hard, you fail a lot, but if you've got a passion, you can get through that. Remember, you are being paid to follow your curiosity. It's a great privilege, actually, a great privilege. And that isn't always so recognized. All my life, I've been paid a reasonable salary just to follow my interests and curiosity. I can't think of a more wonderful career, really. But there is a danger you become entitled. You think that the world owes you this. It doesn't. Public is supporting you, and it's a privilege to do it. I think if you are able to speak about science in a public arena, you have a responsibility to do that. I wrote a book which is written for the ordinary public in a form that I wanted to explain to people who wouldn't normally read it. I think partly coming from a working class background, I've been used to talking to people who are not knowledgeable about things, but respectfully, and that helps in public engagement. So I'm busy, but I do try and continue doing that as much as I can.